month or so before the election, you all may have caught it in Southeast Missourian, but there was a survey about small business and how important small business was or is to our local economy as well as to the national economy. Well, when I saw that article, I immediately tried to get a hold of Dr. Stapleton and say, hey, we need you all come out to Rotary and tell us about this. And our presenter today is Justin Pobst. And Justin is a young man who lives over in Jackson with his wife and a couple of fine-looking little ladies. And but Justin is with the Douglas C. Green Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a small business and technology development center, which is better known as most of us just call it the entrepreneurship area at Southeast. But this survey was very fascinating to me, and so let's give Justin a warm welcome and let him tell us about it.
Thanks. I swear I feel if I had a cowboy hat on, I'd sing some Garth Brooks right now with this thing on my ear. Like he said, my name's Justin Pobst. It's really nice of y'all to have me. A lot of friends, familiar faces, and I got to meet a few people already that I didn't know. I work at Southeast Missouri State University. I don't know why my wife dressed me in Murray State colors today, so ignore that. You get the joke there? Okay, never mind. What I want to talk about today, kind of what Steve alluded to, was job creation. Job creation. The question is that important to you? Is job creation important to your community? Is job creation important to our livelihood here in Cape Girardeau, in the Cape County? And I would venture to say, looking around this room of business leaders, civic leaders, that you would say yes, the job creation is vital to our economy here locally, correct? By saying that job creation is important to our community, the bigger question would be, how do we create jobs? How can we, as business leaders in the Cape County area, help create jobs and spur job growth? How can we do that? Now, what we've done in the past is we've done things a certain way to look at certain statistics, and we've made conclusions based on that. What we did at the university, and I would say I had the amazing opportunity to work with Dr. James Stapleton. I don't know how many of you know Dr. Stapleton. If you don't know him, you need to know him. He's an awesome guy, just passionate about entrepreneurship and passionate about our area here in Southeast Missouri. And he was just a great guy to work with. But what he set out to do, and it was put forth through the DRA, the Delta Regional Authority. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the DRA, but it is a federally funded program that has identified 252 counties that go up and down the Mississippi River, which include Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, and actually Alabama. Don't ask me why, but Alabama's in it too, okay? But they identified 252 counties as counties that are, let's just be honest, they're poor counties. In relation to the rest of America, the Delta region, from an economic standpoint, is a distressed area. Now, not every single county is like that, but a lot of them are. And I've gotten an opportunity to travel through a lot of these counties I've never been to before, and I tell you, I've seen it firsthand, and it's not Cape Girardeau everywhere we go, up and down the river, as you all know. But what I was able to do was help with Dr. Stapleton with putting together this paper he published, and it's out everywhere. I got to work with him, and also through that I was able to take a subset of the study, because this main study is going to be all about the DRA. I pulled out Missouri and I pulled out Southeast Missouri and tried to compare those two numbers also with the DRA. So as I show you today just some of the findings, I'll try to give you a few little tidbits about Missouri plus Southeast Missouri so you can compare it to the DRA region too. Because they are a little bit different, but you can see the trends are real similar going around. One more thing I would like to say before we go forward is, I'm assuming everybody obviously knows the university and where it's at. Everybody probably knows where the Harrison College of Business is at the university. Now, how many people know where the Douglas C. Green Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is? Right, about half of us. So what I just want to take 1 second and just tell you what we do at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, because I get the opportunity to work in both. I work in the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and I also teach entrepreneurship classes in the management marketing department at the business college. At the center, we really focus on 3 things, and this is all you have to remember. Everything is about small business, but we have 3 main items we try to deliver: is training, also business assistance, which would be one-on-one business counseling, which some of you either refer people to me, and I appreciate all you that do that, and some of you I work with that are in here in this room right now. And it's completely free of charge for someone to come in, and we have lots of resources to help people get started or people that want to grow. Especially you bankers out there, a lot of you all, you know me well, and I know a lot of you send people to me because I can help them if they are not ready to come see you yet. I'll get them ready and send it back to you. We also do the research. The research is another big part of what we do at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We do a lot of research because we're well connected with our faculty there at the university and the business college. So I had to get a plug in there, so sorry about that. But that's the Innovation Center, if you're wondering about that. I also have, at the end, if you are interested in the Innovation Center at all, I brought just one of our handouts. It talks about the Innovation Center and what we do. You're more than welcome to grab some. I'll just leave them up here for later. Let's talk about about this report, so you can kind of get to see some of the data on here. And I'll try to get through this as quick as I can, so you've got any questions, so you can pop them at me at the end. So this is what the cover of this looks like. It's the Jobs and Small Businesses report that was presented to the DRA in September. So this is all fairly new information. The study covers from January 92 all the way through January 2010. So it's a pretty lengthy period of time that it's covered. We used a new data source. It's called the National Establishment Time Series Database, or NETS. You'll hear me say NETS for short. The database was created in 2004, or actually it was first used in a report in 2004. It was been created for a while before that. Since 2004, it's been used in over 60 different studies, and we are one of those. It's strongly based on Dun & Bradstreet information. I'm sure a lot of you all know Dun & Bradstreet, and that it is the largest database out there of small businesses and large businesses in America. It's a great database. But they use a lot of the information from DMB, and they take annual snapshots to capture dynamics, establishment dynamics, not just static numbers, but dynamics, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. There are some advantages of using NETS database against the BLS. I don't know if, I'm sure some of you know, use the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. You can get it in different places, census.gov. But it's different. Some of the things that make it an advantage, it covers a much larger sample because it doesn't really exclude some of the things the BLS does. The BLS will exclude agriculture operations. It also will exclude small businesses that don't have any unemployment type filings or anything like that. They won't even be counted in those numbers. So it excludes that. And it doesn't include, if you look at the BLS, it has no way to track relocations. So when businesses move from one location to the other, it doesn't have a way to track that. So there are some advantages, a lot more. That's just the top 2 or 3 that I like to talk about. There's more that the NETS has. But those are the main ones. It's been tested over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it's a very reliable source. We did lots of research before we even started this to see how strong this database was, and it has been Some of the biggest names in business schools you can think of in America have tested this thing, and they're using it now for study. So it's a very reliable source. So before we even jump into the numbers, because that's where I'm going to jump right into after this, is you need to understand that when we talk about establishment dynamics, what we're actually talking about in this study. So this will make a little more sense when you see these numbers. When we talk about things that affect different dynamics, we look at 6 different things, and the NETS database does this. You look at openings, closings, which would be the reciprocal of that, as you can see in the beautiful blue and the beautiful red. We've got openings and closings, we've got relocation in, relocation out, we've got expansions and contractions. And this all happens year to year all the time. We have businesses that open, we have businesses that come in and bring jobs, we have expansions that happen within our communities that bring jobs, and then we have these red things over here that take jobs away. And I will refer to those as births and deaths, so I'm sorry if that's too morbid for you, okay? But that's just, I don't mean it that way. But so these are your births, these are your deaths of jobs. Because what we're trying to get down to is the net job growth. So this minus that, hopefully it's a positive number so we can get a net job growth number. Overall, this is just, again, before we get into those 6 different things, just overall, here's a big picture of the Delta region. If you just look at the Delta region, you can see these are the total number of jobs. Here in the Delta region, a little over 4 million, almost 5 million by 2009. So there's some job growth from a total standpoint. And you can see some of these numbers. Non-commercial, you might be asking what's non-commercial. Non-commercial is government type agency jobs, educational, state universities, things like that, and nonprofits all fall in this. Non-residential are ones that are not from here, not from our state. So if we're talking about Missouri, non-residential jobs would be jobs coming from companies outside of Missouri. Resident jobs is jobs here, the people that own businesses here in our local area. So that's what this breakdown looks like. And again, this is all the Delta region. So that's 252 counties up and down the Mississippi. This is what all those numbers look like. Now, the next slide. What's interesting, this is one of the trends we found. And this is probably, of the 2 main points I'm going to tell you, this is one of the 2 main ones, I'll put it that way. As we started looking at this, we started noticing a trend. And I don't know if you can tell it yet, but I'll explain it to you. It's the same table, except we added 2001 in here. Now, you all remember in 91, we had some tough times economically in that area. 2001, we all know we had a really tough time. Through 2001, we hit a recession. And then in 2008, we hit a big recession there too. What we've noticed, as you see these numbers going across, is that when we hit a recession, and we hit a tough time right after that, these non-resident jobs are the first ones to go down. They're the first ones to react immediately and go down and move out of our communities, are these jobs. And you can see that as the numbers go on. We hit a bad time, jobs are down. Well, things are going pretty good through 2001. If you saw 2002, tanked down. 2008 just happened, tanked down in 2009. What stays steady? Resident jobs. Across the board, always trending upward. Every community we're looking in our area. And I will tell you in Missouri, I'll give you if you want to know what Missouri looks like. Let's see, I'll show that in the next couple slides. But same thing when you look at the totals with Missouri and Southeast Missouri, same thing. Resident jobs, all going upward. So, point number 1, we found out a trend is that these non-resident jobs, when companies move from Illinois or Kansas or Arkansas, or wherever, Kentucky, and they come into our community and they bring a whole bunch of jobs in, it sounds great. But oftentimes, when times get tough, they're the first ones to leave and take all those jobs away. That's trend number 1 we found. Overall, this is the Delta region overall. And you can see from an opening, closing we were talking about, these are those 6 dynamics. Opening, closing, these 2 go together. Expansion, contraction, and then in and out relocation go together. And you can see that as far as opening and closing, they account for about 60% of all the jobs that happen over that time period in the Delta region. Expansion and contraction came in a little over 30%. And then the in and out relocation, those ones we were talking about, is only about 5%. And if you do some quick math, you can find out that in the Delta region, basically almost break even, open and closing. A huge plus, net gain in jobs on expansion, and a net loss for those relocation companies that come in and out overall in the Delta region. And when we looked at Southeast Missouri and Missouri, it was pretty much the same thing, just smaller numbers. And we'll get into those specifically here next. So now let's just talk about the opening and closing. Just opening, businesses opening and businesses that are closing. These are all the different DRA states. There's Missouri. You know, we opened with that, closed with that. Had a little bit of a negative there in the net loss, if you will, of jobs over the time frame. I actually pulled out Southeast Missouri in my study that I did, and we saw an average of 12,528 jobs created from establishment births and 11,791 jobs deaths over that same period, which it did come in a slight net job loss for the opening and closing. Missouri, the state of Missouri, as a state, the whole state actually did a little better than that on this. They actually had a small positive net job growth on this. This is for all you that like colored graphs. Here's a nice colored graph for you. You can see this openings is up here. This is tracks all the different openings. Then we got the red for the closing. The green shows the difference. So these are actually net. So when they're above this black line, we're having a net job growth. Below, we're losing. You can see in the DRA region, the whole region, those 252 counties, since the 2008 or so, it's not been so good. But you can kind of see a trend there for the DRA. Let's move on to expansion contraction. Okay. This is again we're talking about the DRA region for Missouri. This is what it showed, a positive 48,400 jobs that were created, net job growth from expansion. As you notice, every DRA region had a positive job growth when we're talking about expansion and contraction. Everybody did. For Southeast Missouri, we gained, on average, 9,500 jobs a year from expansion, and we only lost 6,600 jobs over that same period. So it resulted in a net gain. For Missouri, the net gain was 418,465 jobs over that same period for our state, entire state. And again, a beautiful graph, courtesy of Excel. So you can show, again, much more positive trend, as you can see, with expansion. Relocation, our last one here. As you can see, we've got some negative numbers here. And then just for the Missouri DRA counties, and I didn't say this, but the Missouri DRA counties is most of Southeast Missouri, and there are a few counties west of Poplar Bluff that are included in that. Some a little north and west of Poplar Bluff, but most of the counties that we all are familiar with from around here. But this shows the Delta region relocation dynamics, and Missouri, the whole state of Missouri had a net loss of 10,958 jobs over the same period. The state did. The only reason I didn't need to point this out. You could say, well, Justin, Missouri DRA had a positive 1,400 jobs, basically the Southeast Missouri portion of it. Well, there was something that happened in 97 and 98 that the number went ridiculously higher than any other year. I mean, it was quadruple what it was. So something happened in that year, and we must have had a large influx in 97, 98, some huge company, I don't know, but something happened there. And if you take that out of the study, we have a net loss for Southeast Missouri. So that's one thing to note there. It is positive, but yet we had one year that kind of skewed the numbers a little bit. And again, there's your pretty graph. You can see the net effect's not very big. It's pretty close to zero, negative a lot of the time for this relocation. Here's another thing that people like, you guys might be interested in. This talks about the size of companies. So we've got the self-employed, so that'd be somebody that's by yourself. Stage 1, they call 2 to 9 employees. Stage 2 is 10 to 99. Stage 3 is 100 to 499. And then stage 4 is the really big companies over 500. As you can see, going across, we saw some trends with this too. You can see the numbers down as the larger the companies get, especially these two. These larger companies, which we found are kind of tied in with some of this relocation effort, their net job growth was part of the trend there. And as you can see, stage 1 companies right here, they have a lot of increase in the total job. Basically, those top two there, almost 42% of all the jobs through that time period. This is a graph I like to really show. I think this is really representative. You can see where the red is at, right? The red is all over in this direction over here. Most of the red's over there. You don't have as much red in these two columns. Most of the red's over in these columns over here. So you can see that firm size does matter as far as net job growth over that long period of time. It's mostly negative, the larger it gets, and it's mostly positive on this side as we get on this side. And the last thing I wanted to say was, so the main things we learned from this report is that, and from this study is, and this might, I mean, I talk about this a lot with people and get people that want to argue, and I just want to say, look, I'm just the messenger. I didn't make this stuff up, so you can read all we did was take data and pulled it out and just given it to you. But the truth is, the data shows that what's spurring job growth, net job growth, is expansion, is when businesses that are here in our area, when they expand over a long period of time, those jobs stay. Over a short period of time, it might be a little different because you might have some of those relocation companies come in. But if you look at the long term, if we're interested as a community in long-term strategies to grow jobs, we have to focus on expanding our current businesses. That has to be a top priority. Now that's opinion from Justin, but that's what the numbers showed me, is that we need to have more focus on entrepreneurship in general, but we need to really focus on our local companies here that want to expand, because those jobs will stay. So it does go against the grain of a lot of our economic development strategies we've done in the past. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to attract big companies. We should definitely still do that, but there has to be a mix. It has to be a mix. That can't be our only focus. We need to focus also on our small companies, our small businesses, especially those that have less than 10 employees, because the study shows that those are the ones that really generate a lot of jobs and keep them for the long term. So now I will be quiet, and I know that's a lot of numbers and a lot of graphs, and it's probably pretty boring with Excel. So I normally like to talk on other stuff and not so much numbers, but if you have any questions, and if you want the actual report and you want to go home and read it, take it to your office and read it, I brought a couple copies. James, if you guys get to know Dr. Stapleton, he is like super tree hugger, like doesn't want us to waste paper, so he wanted me to let you know if you want it for free. It's out on the DRA website. You can dra.gov. You can click on research, and there it is sitting right there. You can read it for free right on your computer, or you can print it out all you want, and check out the actual data as it's proposed through all that. Yes, go ahead.
This is not really on the topic of your discussion, but could you explain to us sort of the relationship between the Innovation Center and the university and how it's funded?
Yeah, good question. I get that one a lot. So we fall under the business college. Dean McDougall, who's the dean of the business college, is basically our boss. He was at our staff meeting yesterday. He gives us direction, and Dr. Stapleton is in charge of the center overall vision and what we're doing. But as it relates, we're university employees, just like everybody else there. Now, sometimes we do get grant projects that come through, and we hire people specifically for those grants. They're still university employees. A lot of those are match, where the university has to pay half, and then the grant will give us some money for certain personnel to work on certain grants. But we are, the CIE is a university funded and backed department, just like all the rest of the departments too. The beauty of it, what we're proud of there is, we have Douglas C. Green is a great entrepreneur, and he came to Southeast and got to meet Dr. Stapleton and Dean McDougall, and he saw what we were doing and heard some of the vision of the things we're doing today, a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, and was so excited about what we're doing. He was a great donor, and we obviously named our building after him because of the vision. He saw our vision, what we're trying to do to spur economic growth, and I think that for us too is just a proud moment for us, is that we saw somebody who's such a great entrepreneur look at us and go, I want to be a part of what you guys are doing. But yes, I hope that answered your question.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Could you say just a little bit about what you actually do with a person that comes to you?
Sure.
Just describe what kind of problems they have.
Sure.
Or what it is.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times, it kind of goes across the board, but a lot of times, like let's say Benji, for example. I haven't mean to pick on you, Benji. But Benji will send me somebody that's wanting to borrow some money, maybe wanting an SBA loan. And let's face it, a lot of people out in the general public don't even know where to start with that. And in more general, a lot of people don't even know what to do when they go to see a banker, or they're scared to death. They don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to bring. What are they going to say to me? Do I need to have a business plan? Et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how to write a business plan. So what we do a lot of times is I'll bring them in, kind of like a doctor, and kind of assess the situation. What's the symptoms here? What's missing? Do you need a plan? Because I'm not in the business to tell people to write business plans. There's a time and a place for a business plan. Usually that's if for funding needs, they need a business plan for that. But for a lot of people that aren't looking to borrow money, writing a full-blown 50-page novel business plan is not necessary. A lot of times it's testing the market, figuring out who the target market is, because a lot of times a lot of entrepreneurs think they've got it figured out up here and they haven't tested anything out yet. They want to make that leap from idea to launch, and we try to preach that that's not the way to go. Leap to launch, idea to launch there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in between that. So it could be anywhere from helping them fill out loan forms and putting together cash flow statements and income statements, to marketing. Maybe they've got their existing business and they don't know a lot about social media, or it could be management issues. I've had an existing company here in Cape Girardeau came by a couple months ago, and they're looking at hiring their first employee, which is great, but they didn't know if they should do it or not. And they didn't know how to quantify that. How do you even know if I should hire another employee or not? So we got their financials out, we went through that and tried to figure out, would it make sense for them to hire somebody? And what would that cost you? And how would that affect profitability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Things like that. So I like to say I kind of feel like I act like a coach, kind of, if you will. Kind of like a partner who's not monetarily invested in their company. But just try to help them, whatever it is their issue is. Then again, it's across the board, different things. So.
Justin, that period of time, 92 to 2009, was a I mean, number one, we had what I like to call the Clinton economy. That was the good economy, right, Ted?
That's right.
But I'm saying, you know, what we saw in business and industry, it was a period of time when we saw lots of major industrial companies in the country exporting jobs, you know, across the oceans. And then other words, I'm saying, then we came to 2001, we had 9/11, and you know, basically after 9/11, we existed on housing and cars until we had the housing bubble. But I mean, it looks to me, just from your numbers, that the small business, like you say, the people that are single entrepreneurs and the jobs 2 to 10, you know, they were important regardless of what period of time you looked at. But I was curious though if you tried to pull the big factors out, like corporations going to Europe or going across the water, plus the fact of like the right to work. It looked to me like some of those southern states that had right to work, they were showing some much more positive numbers.
That's the next step of the next study we're going to do, and I'm glad you said that. Because I get that sometimes people say, well, is that all you're going to do? Is that, well, actually the next step is answering some of those questions that you're saying, and what Dr. Stapleton wants to do is look at it from a state-by-state standpoint, so you can answer some of those state-specific questions. So that's what we just got the 2011 data, like I'm talking 2 weeks ago. So we haven't even started yet on that. But that's another thing we're going to do the rest of this year is work on states, all the DRA states, but we're basically going to go to Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, all those ones, and look deeper at those numbers. This was more of an overview of what's going on and what are the trends, and now we can actually pull out those states, and because I have a lot of the same questions you do, as we've been making notes of questions like that, and we're going to start digging in deep in each one of those. So the next thing, hopefully this time next year, maybe I'll come back and have a specific Missouri one, or if you want to read some of the other states and compare those, where we can actually get a little bit more detail into the numbers, figure out what's going on. Yes, sir.
Help me understand, on your universe you used to do your study, did you use companies that are 500 or less employees? What was your grouping that you used to do this analysis?
It's all companies.
So regardless of size?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, we're talking about this NETS database is what we're referring to, where we got this data at. You can go online, check it out, read all about it. It's becoming very popular now in economic development studies because, again, it captures more dynamics than just how many people are employed at a given moment in the companies across America that are filing unemployment. Yes.
Are the jobs counted whether they're full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time.
Yep. Yeah. It's a little truer picture.
Justin, did you look at the category of small business jobs? In other words, what type of
Yeah.
small business jobs grew the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. The database has all that, and I had to dig through industry codes. Basically, they have them all through all kinds of industries. So we have all of that too to get through. Yet we haven't. I mean, I did on my own accord look through some of it every now and then, but we're talking 20, 30, 40 different industries. So that in itself is going to take some significant work to get through all that. But we do have that data, and that's going to be part of that state stuff when we start looking at Missouri. Okay, what industries grew, what industries, along with this, what was going on. It'll probably tell a truer picture, about specifically what industries we might want to focus on. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Other questions? Do you have some sense of how Cape Girardeau County stacks up with all these other places you're dealing with?
Yeah, if you're talking specifically about the DRA counties, the 252, Cape Girardeau County is one of the best ones, which is great. That's nice to know. That was one thing that we did look at, is it's definitely one of the strongest counties in the whole Delta region. But there are a lot of counties around us that depend on us that are not doing as well. And so if we can strengthen those too, there's some other theory is what if those got stronger, and would probably strengthen Cape County too, And that's the whole idea behind the DRA and why that was created is if we can strengthen some of these counties, it will feed into the other counties. Because, you know, we all know that our county here is a regional hub. You know, there's people from all the surrounding counties that come here for work and buy goods, services, etc.
All right.
Good.